This episode is made possible by NetSuite by Oracle and Brex, the AI-powered spend platform.
Hello, this is Robert Cornella, CFO of Republic National Distributing Company, and you're listening to the CFO Thought Leader Podcast.
This is episode 1019.
We have some ambitious goals in terms of acquiring a few different businesses in the next 12 months. The other piece is more on the finance side. Is obviously we have a plan, we have a budget, and I want to exceed that budget. Right, I take a lot of pride in putting together the numbers. With beating those numbers is sort of a badge of honor, and continuing to beat those numbers and continuing to grow the business is something that we want to continue doing.
Hi, it's Jack. On today's show, we speak with Josh Schenker, CFO of Aditude. Josh Schenker may well be the only CFO we've interviewed who claims to have dropped out of high school. It's a misnomer, Schenker confesses, but one that holds a kernel of truth, since Schenker took a GED exam in order to bypass senior year and enroll in college ahead of schedule. It would not be his last exit. As you'll learn, Schenker follows his college years with extra helpings of strategy consulting and M&A. Josh Schenker's career journey begins after this. $37,025.1. These are the three numbers to remember to get the visibility and control you need to make the right business decisions instantly. 37,000. That's the number of businesses which have upgraded to NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system, streamlining accounting, financial management, inventory, HR, and more. 25. NetSuite turns 25 this year. That's 25 years of helping businesses do more with less, close their books in days, not weeks, and drive down expenses. 1. Because your business is one of a kind, you should get a customized solution for all of your KPIs in one efficient system and with one source of truth. Manage risk, get reliable forecasts, and improve margins. Everything you need, all in one place. Right now, download NetSuite's popular KPI checklist designed to give you consistently excellent performance, absolutely free, at netsuite.com/KPI. That's netsuite.com/KPI. Hello, we're speaking with Josh Schenker, CFO of Aditude. Josh, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Jack.
So, Josh, take a look back for us. Well, you don't have to go that far back, actually, but take a look back for us and share with us some of those experiences you feel prepared you to become a finance leader. What comes to mind?
So I actually want to go pretty far back to start with. My earliest experiences that were sort of formative from a financial perspective was working for my dad's wealth management company in high school. I got my first experiences not only learning the ins and outs of finance and wealth management, but also portfolio allocation and how you should be looking at a portfolio and optimizing it for the market. And I think that those pieces, was a great sort of onboarding for me as I was getting started and sort of getting more and more interested in the finance world. And so when I went to college, I studied finance. I also got more and more interested in mathematics as it relates to finance. And as a result of that, I had sort of two different opportunities coming out of college. Was either go start working, start my career journey right away, or take another year and sort of take another opportunity to dive into the financial mathematics world. And I had the opportunity to do a master's of finance at MIT. So it was, I thought it was too much of an opportunity to give up and sort of push off for a few years. And so I took that opportunity and studied there for a year.
Who were your classmates? Were they similar to what MBA students would be, or are they kind of a little different?
So it was an interesting time in the program. It was the second or third year of the program that they had just launched at MIT. So there was a mix of people, to be honest. So some were more quantitative. So we're going to quantitative trading or asset management, portfolio management, or just regular sales and trading. And then there were the folks that were more the private equity, venture capital, investment banking, strategy consulting side of the world. That was more kind of MBA. So you could go in a multitude of different directions. I was more interested in, or I had been interested for a long time, I think from college onward, really, in terms of running businesses specifically, as opposed to making bets and, obviously buying a stock here or there and hoping that it went well. I really wanted to dig in and understand how you run a business from the ground up. And so I decided to go to consulting, and that was my first job out of master's program. Was with a boutique consulting firm that then was acquired by PwC Advisory pretty quickly after I joined. So I was in the PwC Advisory group within their M&A and private equity sort of deals on the operational strategy side of the business. I believe it's now called strategy but at the time it was still called PwC Advisory. And what I enjoyed the most as part of that experience was the ability, or the opportunity, I should say, to go from industry to industry in pretty quick succession. We'd have projects that were ranging from two weeks to a few months. And each one of the different projects were in different industries, and I had to jump in and understand financial models and key KPIs of these different businesses. Sometimes never looking at this type of business ever before in my life, and so that opportunity really, I thought was formative as well. I don't know, my love for sort of digging into key metrics of a business and understanding unit economics and what makes a business tick. After doing a few years at PwC, it was a great experience, but we worked on a lot of due diligences as part of larger M&As. And going back to, my, sort of original goal of how do I run a business and learning more. I wanted to take that next opportunity and go a little bit deeper, right? So as opposed to doing a piece of that puzzle as it relates to M&A and running a business, I wanted to be on the business side and actually, take a M&A process from start to finish and really be much closer to the business and learning from the folks who are actually operating the business. So I had the opportunity to join AOL's corporate development group while they were still a public company at the time, actually, in a separate company. And so I was there from, call it the beginning of 2014. So this was a year or so before they were acquired by Verizon. And so I was part of the corporate development group. I worked on a whole host of different M&A deals, ranging from small acqui-hires up to their acquisition of Yahoo once we were part of Verizon. So I really got to run the gamut of, massive deal to small deals and all the fun stuff that comes in between. So got to work with some really awesome product folks, understanding their business and how the M&A would improve their businesses and what they were trying to do, and try to help them plan out and strategize around what the opportunity would look like. as well as, once you actually got into an M&A deal, there was a lot of management of the different functional processes that goes into an M&A process, including HR due diligence and IT due diligence and legal documentation and all the fun stuff that goes along there. So I had a few years of experience, obviously doing M&A, but I still felt like I had been sort of at the sidelines of running a business, right? So I was always partnering with the business. I was always advising the business, whether it was in consulting or on the M&A side. I really wanted to be embedded in a business. And so once we did the Yahoo acquisition, I had the opportunity to join Yahoo Sports in there, to work with the general manager at the time as the head of business operations and strategy, and got a really, great experience, sort of working at a giant company, really understanding like how to do budgeting, how to think through, investment in different initiatives and modeling things out for that business. But I think that, what I realized after doing a few years at Yahoo Sports was that I still felt like I didn't have the tactical knowledge in terms of how to run a business from the like absolute ground, and nothing. I felt like at the time there wasn't really anything that I could do within like a big company to really gain that experience. So I ended up leaving Verizon Yahoo, or Verizon Media, what it was called at the time, to join a startup. And so I've been at startups for the last couple of years. So now I'm on my third or fourth startup.
A number of them have had exits. Is that right? You were able to?
Yeah. So one of them has had an exit, and that was called Clean.io at the time. It was a company it was a cybersecurity company in the ad tech space. So we sold that business. So I joined that company in around 2020. We sold the business at the end of 2022. So I was there for, just around 3 years. And the thing I love about working at startups is you get to wear a ton of different hats. So, my title is CFO and head of corporate development, but, at a startup, a 30-person startup, you're doing not only accounting and tax and finance stuff, but you're also doing the HR, and you're doing investor relations, and you're doing legal, and you're doing, strategic guidance, and just really, trying to offer your hands in whatever the company needs to succeed.
Was it the founders at Clean.io who brought you in, or how was it?
Yeah, so it was an interesting makeup there. So they had roughly, I think there was like 5 founders at the time. 2 of them I had worked with at AOL, and we had crossed paths in my corporate development days. And so one of them had been doing sort of these activities, had sort of been managing for the business that had been, for the first couple of years that the business was there, getting it off the ground. But at that point in time, he was looking to more shift into a board position, and be less day to day in the business. So he brought me on, gave me my first shot, and sort of trained me and mentored me through the ins and outs of running a small company.
And again, that's kind of a common situation there. Again, you said 5 founders, so you have quite a few. Some are devoted to the business, some are looking to move on. Is that sort of the dynamic, or?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think 3 of them, I would say 2 of them were there from the beginning through the time we sold. The other 3 were more board members towards the end for the last couple of years. They ended up bringing on a CEO for a time period who was when I joined. I was there with, and then one of the founders sort of took over the reins as CEO towards the end of my tenure there. But yeah, I think that it made sense, obviously, to start for that company when they were trying to sort of pull together expertise and knowledge bases across a couple different domains when they were founding it. And then as the company got sort of stronger and bigger, some of those folks decided, that their interests were lie in other places.
Is it fair to say part of what made you an attractive candidate for CFO is your M&A experience and how there could be a transaction in this company's future? They weren't certain, but they were thinking he has the skill set. Yeah.
I think that they were looking for someone who had experience raising capital. So we raised a Series A in I mean, it's kind of crazy to think about it, but like the middle of the pandemic or the beginning of the pandemic, we raised our Series A at Clean.io in August 2020. So I remember vividly us deciding to go out to market in February of 2020, only to a month in, be sort of knocked over the head with, oh, this is a pandemic. No one's doing anything for the next couple of months, and making sure that we had to look at our bank account on a daily basis, make sure, okay, what's our runway going to look like? Are we going to be able to raise this capital? But
where had you raised capital previously? Was it in your corporate development area?
In corporate development, yeah, we had spun out. A company called Crunchbase. So it's a big sort of data company in the in sort of the more of the venture capital space. But we had partnered with a venture capital firm to spin that out from AOL. So I had experience doing it there. But this was, in terms of a individual company, this was my first experience. So I relied on, obviously, some of the skills that I had gained, doing corporate development, but others, it was, just sort of figure it out as you go, and try to do the best, based on the information that I had in front of me.
And I want to point out to the listeners that you go on your next role is actually a chief operating officer role is it a similarly sized company or is it larger? Or?
Yeah, it was a similar sized company. I was in the e-commerce data space. It's called Cluster. Previously, it was called Algopix at the time. And it was a similar role to what I had been doing at Aditude, with a little bit more of a BD sort of slant to it, which is why I took on a little bit more of the COO position. In my experience, I sort of float between COO and CFO. So I don't know if I would put myself in one category or the other. I would say that I do a lot of stuff for the company across operations as well as finance. And so in that specific instance, that was my role at the company. But there was no CFO. So I was also doing the CFO things in addition to some of these chief operating officer activities.
Just one other, I just want you to look back a little more for us, if you wouldn't mind. When you were at AOL and it's acquired by Verizon Media, you stick around for a number of years. I mean, to me, I would have thought, okay, he's not going to like that. It's a bigger ship. He likes the smaller ship. He likes doing the deals. It sounded like AOL was very entrepreneurial in some ways. I don't know.
Yeah, I look at it as two. So while I was at Verizon Media for call it 6 years, approximately 6 years, I look at it as almost two different positions, almost two different companies that I worked for in that time frame. So I had that AOL corporate development experience for the first, call it 2.5, 3 years, and then the last 2.5, 3 years I was within Yahoo Sports, was where I was able to sort of gain that experience much closer to the business and actually operating the business. So yeah, I think I was definitely itching at that point in time around the time that I switched over into one of the business units for a different experience. I had felt like I had gained a ton of great experience and been, sort of trained up within the corporate development group, and really just looking for that next piece of the journey in terms of, okay, the goal is I want to be able to run a business, at the end of the day, and is there another position within this company or outside of this company to go and gain more skills to be able to go and do that.
All right. Well, we might have a few more career related questions for you a little later on, but right now let's find out about Aditude. Tell us about this next opportunity where you step into the CFO office. what is Aditude? I love saying that. What is that? And what does it do?
So Aditude, yeah. So Aditude is one of the largest header bidding and advertising operations companies in the world at this point. Actually, we power advertising for hundreds of sites and process billions of events on a monthly basis. I'd say what truly sort of separates us from our competitor set is not just best in class technology, which I think a lot of companies try to say. I think we think ours is obviously the best, and we've sort of proven that out. But it's our unparalleled customer service. We have a lean team. Our companies, we have maybe 30 people on staff. Even though we've obviously scaled the business pretty substantially for that size team. And we try to make sure that basically the people that can solve the problems for our customers are one, maybe two steps away from the people that are actually from our clients. So instead of having layers and layers of customer support people and taking lots of time for you to get answers to stuff, we make it, we prioritize the ability for our clients to be able to talk to the people who are actually going to solve their problems directly. And I think that's what sort of sets us apart.
And what is a typical target customer? What would the size? Tell us about that.
So we work with companies large and small. And I would say in two different specific sort of arenas. Primarily, we work with content publishers. So those are online publishers that run the gamut in terms of types of genres, right? Gaming, sports, leisure, entertainment, news. So there's tons of. We work with tons of sites that sort of span those types of industries. And we also work with advertisers. So we recently actually bought what's called a supply side platform. It's called CPM Star. We did that acquisition in March of 2024. And as a result, we're now selling into directly into advertisers for the inventory that they're bidding on. And so we sell into both of those categories of.
Now, did you raise some money as well since you arrived, or did that happen prior to your arrival?
Yeah, it's an interesting story on that one. So Jared, our CEO, he started the company as a consulting business, and so bootstrapped it by himself. Decided, call it 3 years ago or so, that there was this opportunity to shift from a primarily consulting business into a technology first SaaS business. And, still, taking the ethos of lean and mean and a bootstrap business, he scaled the business for the first couple of years by himself. And then we had the opportunity a few months after I joined to raise money from Volition Capital. And so we did a Series A last year. And we closed it in August of 2024. For $15 million. And the primary use of that capital is going to go to doing acquisitions like the one that we did for CBM Star in 2024, as well as some marketing and branding. So it just gives us a little more capital to go and do some other strategic initiatives that we want to go and do.
Things are pretty, would you characterize this market as ad tech, or do you look at it differently?
Yeah. We're squarely in the ad tech space. So we work with obviously content publishers who are getting advertising, and we work with advertisers, whether it's within the platforms that are bidding on inventory for those publishers, or directly with those advertisers who are looking to advertise on certain publishers.
There's a strong argument to be made that ad tech is just a tough business, or the model seems to be changing or evolving before our eyes. How do you look at it?
It's definitely evolving and changing, and it's definitely a competitive market.
Customers are hurting. I mean, publishers are, a lot of the publishing industry is struggling.
Yeah, and I think that's where a large part of our selling or sort of go to market is around, obviously, that support that we give, that higher level support that we do. So the publishers, if they are a bit leaner because they can't hire as many people, we obviously can take on a lot of the heavy lifting as it relates to ad ops and monetization for them. Our technology, as I said before, is best in class and enables them to make more money out of the same advertising that they've, maybe they're using a competitor of ours, or maybe they're not using anyone and they're trying to do it themselves. So a bunch of those pieces allow us to be that sort of frontline defense for the publishers that we work with, and really help them to optimize their ad strategy, their ad monetization, improve everything across the board.
Wanted to ask: is AI intersect your world? I mean, are you? Is there a AI a component of your?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So we our engineers and some of the more technical folks on the team use it to improve certain processes, and so we're using all the best sort of tools out there in terms of how we optimize our processes and our abilities to go and do what we do best for our customer base.
18 months from now, would you be surprised to have completed 2 additional acquisitions?
I would say that I hope that we do 2 more acquisitions in the next 6 months from now. So we're actively looking at opportunities on a day-to-day basis. We're interested in sort of looking at opportunities that sort of fit into our world and will help us.
These will likely be SaaS companies?
They're a mix, right? So I would say that the way that we look at M&A is there someone in our space that we can basically buy to gain contracts, from a simple perspective? Is there someone that has a product that we don't have that we want to add on, right? Instead of, it's sort of a build versus buy type of analysis that we'll do. And then third is there a newer vertical or a new space within, whether ad tech or maybe outside of ad tech, that if we do an acquisition, it allows us to go and gain into. So we sort of look at the different opportunities within that filter, right? Is it just, competition? Is it, a product or feature addition, or is it a sort of a new space, new space that we can grow into?
I'm curious, as someone who's interested in making some acquisitions, how are you getting out there and starting to have conversations with C-suite executives of other publishers? I mean, is it there are roundtable opportunities? I mean, I don't know how you approach them with an email in the middle of the night. It shows up.
It's a mix. It's a mix of things. Some of it, a lot of it's email, right? So it kind of starts with the strategy, right? So as we talked about the filter, and then it follows through with, okay, so who are the companies that fit into the different filters that we're looking at? And so that's, a little bit of, okay, here's who we know in the market. And how do they sort of fit into the different categories that we were looking at, as well as, searching around on different third-party research sites and tools, and just trying to figure out, through whether it's Google searches or other tools in terms of how do we find companies that sort of hit on different keywords that we're looking for. So once we have that list, we then try to find as much information about those companies to say, okay, are they too small? Are they too big? Are they, for whatever reason, do they not fit our filter, our sort of next level of filter? And once we've come to, okay, here are the 10 companies that sort of fit squarely into the qualifications that we're looking for, we put together a strategy of how we're going to reach out to them. So it's a mix of, okay, our investor knows someone, a board member at this company, so they're going to reach out to that board member and try to get an intro. Or we know this company from the industry, and so we'll, either the CEO or myself will reach out and start the conversation there. Or it's a cold email, and we just, we tell them, hey, look, here's who we are. Here's what we're about. We'd love to chat with you guys about what could happen. And then occasionally we'll get banker inbound. Given that we did the raise, and Volition obviously is talking to bankers all the time in terms of just understanding the industry. They have relationships, with people, and they know that obviously they invested in Aditude. And so if there's a company that they're representing or that is coming to the market that they know of, through their network, they'll sometimes sort of flow that through to Volition, that will then come to us, and then we'll qualify them, as we do any other company.
Okay. All right. The ecosystem. All right. Well, we're up to our finance strategic moment question. And this is where we'd like you to look back and just share with us a specific experience that you've had that you learned from, or you have a lesson to share. Anything?
Yeah, I feel like I've had a lot of strategic moments in my career. It's kind of funny as I was sort of thinking about this. But one that sticks out, I guess most sort of most clearly or most pertinently for this is that I was at while we were at Yahoo Sports, it was a really interesting time in the industry. So I started prior to when PASPA, which was big legislation around sports betting, was struck down by the Supreme Court. So I started with Yahoo Sports when sports betting was not legal, in the wider US, and ended as sports betting basically was now legal. States could decide for themselves if they wanted to legalize it. And so I was part of the team that was putting together the strategy of how we wanted to take advantage of this massive market that we knew was basically, was about to be a tidal wave of opportunity for a sports media company. So we spent time in UK working with, talking to different gambling operators there, learning the market, learning the different pieces of whether it was technology or licensing or all the things that needed to come together if you wanted to be an operator. Being owned by Verizon at the time, which is a Fortune 50 or a top 50 company in the world, probably in the world, or at least in the US. They wanted to be cautious about it, which makes a ton of sense, and wanted to understand what our strategy was before we just, decided for ourselves like how we were going to go sort of operate in this market. And so we spent weeks and weeks putting together an initial briefing for the CEO, and we put a ton of research into it in terms of the market and the opportunity. And we tried to be sort of conservative, like we didn't want to, promise the world necessarily. But so we tried to put together a realistic and conservative case and model. But unfortunately, we didn't take we didn't have the mindset of almost the audience that we were presenting this to, right? Coming from a company that does 100 billion plus in revenue, the opportunity that we were putting out for them was interesting and was compelling, but it wasn't big enough for it to sort of be important enough for them. And so, what I learned from that experience, right, from that specific experience, was that you need to take the broader context, right, as you're thinking about initiatives, investments, and plans, and big sort of opportunities within a business. You need to be taking the context not just within your small business unit, but also the macro business at large. So we had the opportunity to continue sort of refining the model and refining sort of the opportunity. And ultimately, we're able to go back in front of sort of senior leadership with an improved plan and a bigger opportunity. And that time, obviously, we were able to sort of take sort of take the bigger context into account, and make sure that we weren't sort of hampering ourselves or sort of holding ourselves back, in order to obviously show like, okay, this is a big enough opportunity for not just for Yahoo Sports to care about, but for the the larger Verizon Media and Verizon to care about.
CFOs and controllers, does expense management feel like a necessary evil? It's time to switch to Brex. Brex automates and accelerates spend management with easy-to-use corporate cards, travel, expense management, and bill pay, all on one AI-powered platform. Brex makes it easy to boost efficiency and compliance enterprise-wide and free up your managers, employees, and accounting team for higher impact work. Top companies from startups to enterprises are using Brex to automate manual work and transform their finance operations. We're talking DoorDash, Robinhood, Airtable, and countless other industry leaders. Ready to join them? Switch to AI-powered spend management at Brex.com. We're going to jump to what we refer to as our mentoring round, where we're going to begin by asking you to look back again. We're wondering the first time you stepped into the CFO role, it would have been at Clean IO, I guess, something you didn't expect. You thought, you had observed quite a few C-suite executives by that time, but once you got the position, you step into the role, you were like, oh, I wish someone had told me about this. Anything?
Yeah. So, I mean, it goes to that. I had some sort of inkling of what it would be like, but I also had no idea what I was sort of jumping into, as a company, the scale that we were at, which was probably 20 people at the time, 15, 20 people. And the myriad of things that a CFO or an operator has to deal with on a daily basis, on a monthly basis. Obviously I was coming from a much larger, much larger companies at the time. And so there, at Verizon, you have teams of people that are dealing with, for example, state and local tax, right? There's a team of people that's dealing with that. And that's 1% of my time as a CFO at a small company. I have to think about, okay, sales tax nexus in a certain jurisdiction because we have, because the rules around SaaS, changed in 2018 or 2019. So that was definitely something that was a little bit jarring, going from doing business operations and strategy at a major company to, okay, now I'm in the driver's seat of a small company, and there's really, I have people to help me along the way and advisors and accountants or whatever, but I need to figure these things out. And I don't have, huge teams of people that I can rely on to provide me expertise.
We always like to ask our guests to reflect a little on the personal side for us. Josh, what's one thing that most people don't know about you?
What people don't know about me? I have one thing that I usually say for this thing. I'm just trying to decide if I want it to be on a podcast.
All the more. That's the one.
Yeah. I'm technically a high school dropout.
Whoa.
Which is my answer for this, which I know it can be pretty surprising given that I ultimately went to MIT and have now become a CFO. It's a little bit, it's a little bit of a misnomer, I should say, because I dropped out of high school to go to college early, but I am technically a dropout as I don't have a diploma from my high school. I took a GED in order to do that.
We like to find out if there's a book or something you can recommend to our audience. It doesn't have to be a business book. It might be something that intrigues you, and it doesn't have to be a book. It could be a podcast or something.
I'm a big fan of huge fan of podcasts. I listen to tons of audio, and it runs the gamut of sports and business. So one podcast I really, really like is a podcast called My First Million. name of it sort of, I think it is probably what they focused on early in the podcast sort of history. Nowadays, it's more focused on these two entrepreneurs, and they have different ideas, and they sort of talk through different business opportunities and ideas, and sort of ideate together, and have interesting guests that will come on and also talk through different business ideas and their journeys and how they've sort of approached different things. So it's
What's the name again?
My First Million.
My First Million, of course. Okay, well, we are up to the final question where we're going to ask you to look forward finally. And what we'd like to know is, what are your priorities as CFO of Aditude over the next 12 months? What are those priorities?
So my priorities as the CFO and head of corporate development at Aditude are a few things. So M&A, as we talked about before, I want, we have some ambitious goals in terms of acquiring a few different businesses in the next 12 months. The other piece is more on the finance side. Is obviously we have a plan, and we have a budget, and I want to exceed that budget. Right. I take a lot of pride in putting together the numbers with our CEO and the rest of our leadership team, and beating those numbers is sort of a badge of honor, and continuing to beat those numbers and continuing to grow the business is something that we want to continue doing.
Josh Schenker, thank you for joining us on CFO Thought Leader.
Thank you so much, Jack.
Hello, listeners. Jack here. I hope you've been enjoying some of our recent CFO Thought Leader episodes. To better serve you, we need your feedback. And our 2024 listener survey is now live. What do you like about CFO Thought Leader? What don't you like about CFO Thought Leader? This is what we call continuous improvement. We want to serve you better, but we can only do that by hearing from you. You'll find our 2024 survey right on the nav bar at cfothoughtleader.com. To demonstrate our gratitude, survey takers will receive a $10 savings coupon on the purchase of our new book, The CFO 500. Take the survey and the coupon is yours. Please help us serve you better. And as always, thank you for listening.